This Let's Edit with Media Composer tutorial is brought to you by VideoGuys.com, the leading reseller of video editing and production equipment for more than 25 years. Check out VideoGuys.com for great deals on Avid Media Composer software licenses, subscriptions, and upgrades, and use coupon code MC101 for 5% off any purchase. Hey everyone, Kevin P McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Media Composer 101 tutorial, and this lesson is a big one. It's our introduction to the new release 8.3 of Avid Media Composer, and of course this release introduces Media Composer editors to the world of beyond HD editing, meaning 2K, 4K, and Ultra HD. And in this lesson, I'm going to go over some of the major new features inside of Media Composer, plus a couple extra little cool bells and whistles that you're definitely going to want to know when you make your upgrade. Of course, this upgrade is absolutely free for anyone that's on the Media Composer subscription plan or had purchased Media Composer version 8 when it was released. Okay, short introduction here. Let's just get into Media Composer and let's get started. Okay, so let's Command and Tab into Avid Media Composer, obviously an Alt and Tab for all my Windows friends out there. And you'll see we're greeted, as always, by the project selection window. Now, if you've updated from version 8.2 to 8.3, this window's not going to look very different because in the 8.2 update of Media Composer, we were actually given some more information over here on the right-hand side of the project window. But of course, you'll now see that things are a little bit different because it's telling me that my project type is a 4K DCI scope project. And of course, how we get access to these new formats is by simply coming up to the New Project button. Once we click on it, you'll see now over here in the Format section, I can click on down, and you'll see that we now have access to not only the PAL, NTSC, 720, and 1080 HD projects, but we also have access to 4K, 2K, and Ultra HD. And inside of the 2K and 4K project types, you'll see that we also have access to a DCI flat, full, and scope aspect, and those formats, the DCI formats, are of course for digital cinema. So if you're doing any work for the theater, these are the different projects that you're going to want to select. And of course, again, like I said before, we have them both for 2K and for 4K as well. Now, I'm not going to create a new project because I already have a project set up for what's new in version 8.3 of Media Composer. So all we're going to do is simply say OK and get into our project. And once Media Composer loads our project, you're really not going to notice anything different. And that's really the way that it should be. Most of what is going on inside of Media Composer are slight bells and whistles, things that you're just going to need to remember when you're working in your 2K, 4K, or Ultra HD project. Now, I already have a bin with transcoded media, so I don't want to get into that just yet. What I want to do is I want to import just some raw 4K red footage. So I'm going to create a new bin, and what I'm going to do is, now what's important to keep in mind is that I can't just import the red footage. I have to AMA link to it first. So what we're going to do is we're just going to open up my drive here. Let me just come down to my G-Speed Studio here. Let's just sort by list view. What I'm going to do is simply come into my red footage, and this is a great way to AMA link to footage if you don't do it this way already. If you're on the Mac, what you're going to do is select the files that you want to AMA link to. You're going to hold Option, or if you're on Windows, you're going to hold Alt, and simply drag them into your bin, and Media Composer will link to them literally in a matter of seconds. There are all my clips, and you can see that I can simply select any one of them that I want. Just simply double click on it. Now, I want to make sure that I give a big shout out to the team at Artbeats for providing me with this fantastic 4K footage for us to work with inside of our tutorials. Now, let's just jump down here. Perfect. This is actually one that I wanted because it's not an actual native scope clip. I'm just going to jump down to about the halfway point. I'm simply going to hit play, and you're going to notice that we actually have some choppy playback, which, believe it or not, is exactly what I want. Let's just pick another one here. See if we can get sort of that same choppy playback here. Just jump down to about here, we'll hit play. Yeah, very choppy. Now what's important to keep in mind is that the system is attempting to play back scope, which is basically about 4,000 pixels wide in my project. Now there's a couple ways that we can get around obviously the choppy footage issue. One is that we can transcode, but the second thing that we can do is we can actually jump right in and use proxies. Now, how do we get access to proxies without actually transcoding our media? Well, it's actually very simple. All I'm going to do is come back to the project window, and I'm going to switch over to the Format tab. All Media Composer editors are familiar with the Format tab. You're going to notice, as always, right at the top we have our presets, and what's important to keep in mind is that, again, much like any other version of Media Composer, once you've created your project, you're really locked into that specific frame rate. Not that project type, but that frame rate. We can work with like frame rate clips from different resolutions. You'll see I have access to the Ultra HD 25p, exactly the same with the 2K. I'm already in 4K, but also as well with HD and even SD. Now, of course, I don't have 25p SD, so that's something important to keep in mind for NTSC. I do have access to PAL, of course. But what I wanted to talk about here is actually the proxy drop-down right here. You'll see right now it is set to off. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to switch over to the highest resolution here. And I'm going to come back and hit play, and you'll see that at the highest resolution, it's completely choppy. Now let me just see if I can find a close-up here. I know I've got, there we go. I actually want to find a close-up of this wheel because I know I have one, and you can sort of really get an idea of how choppy it is. Let me just find that clip. There we go, perfect. I'm just going to hit play, and you'll see very choppy, not very nice. Okay? But you know, if I didn't want to transcode this clip and I just wanted to work with it the way that it is, no problem. Like I said, let's just get in and access our proxies. I'm simply going to navigate over to the proxy dropdown. I'm going to drop it down, and I'm going to set it to be 1/4. Just like that. You really don't notice a difference in resolution, but what you do notice a difference in is performance. You'll see, much better, still choppy. So maybe what I want to do in this case is just drop it down to a 1/16. And I'm going to hit play now and take a look at that. Picture quality is still fantastic, but now it's playing back, full frame, full speed. Now, of course, what's also important to keep in mind is I have my sequence set to be best quality. If I was to set it back to be half and half here, I could actually take the proxy, switch it back to 1/4, come back up and hit play, and you'll see it'll play back in real time. What's important to keep in mind is that you're really going to notice this if you're actually looking at this on a broadcast monitor in 4K. That's really where you're going to notice the slight quality differences when you're switching over between proxies off 1/4 and 1/16 resolution. Now, what's also important to keep in mind is that this process is being done on the fly. We also have the ability to get in and transcode our clips into the new DNxHR codec. So what exactly is DNxHR? Well, it's the new codec by Avid that's really designed specifically for higher than HD formats. And what's important to keep in mind is that it's resolution independent. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I'm going to do here is, believe it or not, I'm going to switch into Adobe's After Effects. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, Kev, why are you switching into Adobe's After Effects? Well, let me show you why. What I want to do is I always find that inside of After Effects, the output module is always a great way to explain to people what exactly is going on with the DNxHD codecs inside of Media Composer. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch to the DNxHD codec, and I'm going to go into the codec settings because this is the dropdown that I want to show you. I want to show you how basically based on the format that you're picking, whether you're picking, let's just, for argument's sake, say 1080p 23976, right there, as far as the best resolution, you're locked in at DNx 175. If you're working in 1080i, you're basically going to be working in DNx 145. So that's very important to keep in mind. You'll see different DNxHD codecs based on the resolution and frame rate that you happen to be working at. Now that's a little bit different now with what is going on with DNxHR. Basically, it's resolution independent, meaning that no matter what higher than HD format you happen to be working with, whether it's 2K, 4K, Ultra HD, they're all going to be transcoded into this new codec. So it's basically now one codec to rule them all, much like one ring to rule them all, one codec to rule them all. Now let me show you how this process works. Now one thing I do want to show you about these clips, just to show you that I'm not pulling a fast one on you, is that if I come up to my raster dimensions, you'll see that all of these clips are red clips, and they are 4096 by 2304, and if I wanted to transcode them, it's very simple. I'll just select one here as an example. What I would do, much like with any other clip that I want to transcode, is I'd navigate up to clip, I'd come down to consolidate and transcode. Once I do, here is the consolidate and transcode window. I'm simply going to switch over to transcode, and you'll see now that I can come down, and as far as my raster dimensions go, I could leave it as the project dimensions, which right now you'll see is set to be 1/4, which I wouldn't want to do. I'd always want it to be the source dimensions of the clip. the target video resolution, you'll see that I actually have 4 flavors of DNxHR. I have low bandwidth LB, I have standard quality, high quality, and HQX, or high quality 10-bit. Now in most cases for me, I'm actually transcoding at DNxHR HQ, or high quality. You'll see that I can actually get in, and now this is a big one as well, and I should point this out, which is something that we didn't have access to before. Before, the issue with taking clips and transcoding them into projects was, let's just say in this case, I'm actually working with the frame rate of 24 frames per second. You'll see right here. Now the issue is that some of them are 24 and some of them are 25. Now if I picked a project, in this case a 25 frame project, and I transcoded all these clips, they would all become 25 frames per second. The problem then was that I couldn't relink if I was doing an offline to the high resolution footage because it was at a different frame rate. But of course this checkbox does make all of that irrelevant because we now have the ability to convert the footage to the project's frame rate, assuming that, let's just say hypothetically, we'd already transcoded at the highest quality that we needed, or we can leave all that footage at its native frame rate so that we can relink to it and retranscode it at a higher quality somewhere down the line. And of course, much like in previous versions, we can also apply source transformations, color encoding, and frame flex if we needed to. What I'm going to do is just cancel out, because of course I do want to remind you that by AMA linking to this footage, what I can do is right click on it, I can come down to my source settings, and of course, much like before, you'll see that I can come in and have access to all of these different parameters because this is red footage here. We can also get in, adjust our color encoding. We also, of course, have the ability to come in and utilize frame flex to get in if we needed to. Let's just say hypothetically I was working in a 2K project and I needed to get in and reformat the 4K footage to fit inside the frame. We, of course, have the ability to do that as well. Now, this is nothing new. We've had the ability to do this before, as well as getting in and actually changing the playback frame rate of the clip from 24 to match the project's frame rate of 25 frames per second. Like I said, most of this is just sort of going back over old stuff, but I just wanted to, of course, point that out anyways. Now, I'm not going to apply anything. I'm simply going to cancel it because there are a couple other things that I do want to show you inside of this new release of Media Composer. Now, I think to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to delete all the clips that I AMA linked to in here because, of course, I do have a bin. And let me just switch back to the best quality here. I'm going to come back to my bins. I do have a bin of the exact same media that, of course, has all been transcoded. And you'll see in here, I can really take any one of these clips, just drop it into my timeline. Of course, because I still have access to frame flex, what I can do here is just come into this clip. You'll see here is my frame flex window here. And let's just change this to be a 235 aspect here, just like that. Very nice. And of course I can reframe or reframe this clip just like such. And we now have our clip reframed for a proper scope frame size. And of course you'll see this footage is, of course, playing back in real time, transcoded, but still has access to frame flex all in real time. Very cool. Okay, but that's not what I wanted to show you. I want to show you a couple other bells and whistles before I wrap up this lesson. And the first of which is one of my favorite features. I mean, obviously besides the fact that we can now edit in higher than HD frame sizes, and that's something that might seem very simple, and it's the color info window. Now, what exactly is the color info window? Well, much like in Adobe's After Effects, a lot of people are familiar with this here, located right up here, that when we bring in a clip, and why don't I actually just do that? What I'm going to do is I'll just import a clip into After Effects here. And let's just come back to my footage here. And I'm just going to pick a clip here from basketball. It's not very often that you actually see me working in After Effects in a Media Composer tutorial, but just to give you the idea, we've always been accustomed to this information right up here, being able to access the RGB values by simply dragging our mouse over top of it. Well, now inside of Media Composer, we have the exact same information right here inside of our color info. I can simply drag over any of the color information and I'll get the RGB values of it right there. Now, this is something that I've been working with now for about a month or so, and literally I keep it open all the time. It's just sort of become a force of habit because at any time I might need to jot down that RGB information, and of course I have it at my disposal all the time. Very cool. Now, the last of the new features that I want to show you before I wrap this up. Now, what's important to keep in mind is that there are other new features. I'm just sort of showing you the main bells and whistles. If you want to know all of the features inside of the 8.3 update, what I'm doing is I'm including a link to the What's New Inside of Media Composer 8.3 notes for you to check out on the Pro Video Coalition page of this tutorial. But last but certainly not least, like I said, you'll remember in the 8.2 update, we were given access to a bin search feature where I could come up here, I could type in, let's say I had color coded my bins and I called all the, I had clips sequences, graphics, and audio bins called blue, red, green, yellow. And I could just type in whatever I wanted to. Like for example, I could type in media here and it will only show me the bins that are tagged with media. Well, now not only do we have a search window up here inside of the project window to search through bins, we now also have one located at the bottom of our bin that we can now get in and search inside of the bin for whatever value we happen to enter in here. So for example, you'll see that I have a lot of clips tagged as A003. So let's just say I want to see all of the clips that are tagged as being 003. All I need to do is simply type that in, and there are all the clips that have been tagged as being 003. So it's an easy way to quickly get in and filter inside of a bin to only find the clips that you need to work with. Okay, so that wraps up our look at the new 8.3 update for Avid Media Composer. Now, before I wrap up this lesson, I want to thank our sponsor Video Guys, and don't forget to check them out and use coupon code MC101 for 5% off your Avid purchase or any other purchase including G Technology storage, software plugins, and so much more. And if you like this tutorial, please click that subscribe button, and don't forget that if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, you can post them in the comments section below this lesson, or you can send them to Kevin P. McAuliffe at gmail.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.